Hello, all of you wonderful moms out there. This is episode 106 of Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life. I'm Anoki Kapasi. If you were to open your calendar right now and feel instantaneously overwhelmed by how cluttered it looks, then you're in really good company. As professionally trained women, we've built careers that demand constant productivity. Yet motherhood fragments our time in ways that our training never quite prepared us for. But what if I told you that you could clear off about 10% of the items from your calendar this week? Yes, it's really simple, but really cool. And so today I'm going to share how you can do that. Just like you would declutter any other room in the house, we are going to declutter your calendar. We're going to air it out, open up, create some white space. And it's not just about deleting events. It's also about putting things in the places that they belong. And when we're done, you're going to start feeling a lot less overwhelmed. You're going to be able to reclaim some of that mental space and start creating room for things that matter to you, whether it's spending time with your family or working on some New Year's goals. If you're ready to find those pockets of time that you didn't even know existed, then grab your planner or open up your digital calendar and let's dive in. Are you looking for a way to blend success and motherhood without losing sight of who you are? I get it. I've been there too. Hi, I'm Anoki, a PhD researcher, business owner, and homeschooling mom of 2 boys. As your life coach, I help moms like you create a life you love at home and at work. If you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed, overscheduled, and overlooked, and want a clear roadmap to a balanced life, a meaningful career, and finally feeling like yourself again while being the awesome mama that you are, you're in the right place. In this journey to create the life you truly desire, it's time to rediscover your dreams and achieve your ambitious mom life. Before we get started, I want to remind you that I would love to hear from you. This podcast is all about figuring things out together. So if you have a burning question about balancing your ambitions and motherhood, well, I'm here to help with our mini episodes where I answer your questions. Send me your questions through the links in the show notes. Leave me a voice memo on our contact page or email me directly at hello@solveformom.com. I promise to bring my experience, support, and evidence-based answers to help you navigate your ambitious mom life. With the start of a new year, it marks the turn of a cycle, right? There's this freshness that comes with it. And while goals can be set at any point in the year, it's really natural for the new year to be a time where we set bold new goals to help further our dreams, right? So a lot of things get naturally reset during the start of the new year. But as a mom, in our schedules, our lives don't really seem to get that message. We're still juggling parenting and household duties, a demanding job, all of the responsibilities that come with being a working mom. Even at the start of the new year, when you open your calendar, you don't see a fresh, clean slate. We see all of the things we've been doing, our very busy and full and meaningful lives getting rolled over into the next year. But if you're anything like me, then you're completely dependent on your calendar. So it sort of sets the tone for your day, your week, and even beyond your month and, quite honestly, your year. And so I think it's important that we're a little intentional about our calendar. Just like when you walk into your home, you want it to make you feel a certain way. And those feelings are what make that home feel like home to you. Well, when you open your calendar, it shouldn't stress you out. It should reflect all the things that add value to your life, that are the most important things in your life, and that's why they made it onto your calendar. So that's one thing, just making sure you're selective and intentional about what makes it onto your calendar. But that's not really going to be the focus of today's episode. The other part of your calendar is that it is one of your workspaces, just like your desk would be. You wouldn't want to work in a cluttered office or on a cluttered desk. You wouldn't want to have a cluttered lab bench where you might mislabel your samples, or have a cluttered computer desktop where it takes forever to find the files that you need. Well, the same goes for your calendar. If your calendar is disorganized, if it's cluttered or unbalanced, then it's going to fuel these feelings of being unbalanced in all of the roles that you show up as a mom, as a scientist, and everything else. So I recently made a deliberate choice to audit my calendar and start simplifying things, essentially decluttering. Because if you might recall in episode 101, I talked about how I was intentionally, very strategically slowing down. I'm doing it in a way that fuels my business and my goals and improves my quality time with my family. I used it to plan out my 2026 and beyond. And so now that the year has started, I am ready to implement all of my strategic planning. And what I realized was that I was making it harder on myself to execute on things because my productivity and energy was being drained by a really cluttered calendar. Because I follow my life plan, it wasn't so much that I had been scheduling in things that I shouldn't be doing. Rather, there was a lot of room for improvement in organization of the calendar. And once I completed this decluttering process, I had freed up about 10% of white space on my calendar. So I'm going to tell you about the technique that I use, and I'm going to also explain why it works and how to implement it. So the tip I want to share with you today is called batch blocking. Now this works on any type of calendar. You can use a paper planner or a digital calendar. I prefer using digital calendars because I can automate things, but it still works either way. So you might have heard of time blocking. Well, that's where you are reserving a specific block of time on your calendar for any particular activity that you plan to do at that moment. So you would create individual events for each activity. They would have their own titles for that block. You could opt for color coding. For example, I have a work calendar, I have a personal calendar, I have my kids' homeschooling calendar, and I use different colors for each of them. And when I add events to each of those different calendars, they'll show up as different colors on my single screen. Also, with a digital calendar or a paper planner, you can have these time blocks be recurring. So if I know from 9 o'clock to 9:30, I am going to be doing work emails, and that happens daily, that can show up every day on my calendar. Batch blocking is basically taking the same systematic approach, but a step further. It's where you reserve a block of time for a group of similar activities, and then you treat that whole block as a single unit. When you do this, you are directly cutting down on the number of separate events and entries that show up on your calendar. And just that alone is going to give you a cleaner and clearer view of how much time you actually have free. So let me give you an example. Let's say your calendar right now shows that from 9 to 9:30, you're going to be responding to some emails. And from 11 to 11:30, you're going to sign off on expense reports. And then from 2 to 3 o'clock, you're going to fill out all of the paperwork you need to for your grant applications. So those are 3 different time blocks that are scattered throughout your day. Or if you were to batch them, you could create one admin block, clump them up, let's say from 9 o'clock to 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, and you could get all of that done in one go. Picture a day with 4 to 5 big batch blocks of time and a handful of isolated time blocks versus 15-minute to 1-hour time blocks per activity, accounting for every hour in your day. Multiple colors, maybe. Which one sounds nicer to you? Which one opens up your schedule? Which one makes you tighten your jaws when you open up your calendar? Well, you know me, I love sharing the why behind everything. So let me tell you about what's at play here. When your day is fragmented and you have to constantly switch what you're doing and the type of work that you're doing, it can be extremely mentally taxing. And there's a science-based reason why context switching is really problematic. Your brain actually pays an energy cost, and your productivity then takes a time hit every time you jump between different types of tasks. And people have actually studied this. And so what these studies have then shown is that when you switch from, say, email to writing to scheduling, your brain needs extra time. It needs extra energy, too, to refocus at each time you switch. You've probably experienced this. It happens to me too. I work from home, and when I'm deep into a scientific paper and then my child asks me to help them with something, whether it's making lunch or to help them with something in homeschooling, it takes me a few minutes just to switch modes, even if what they're asking me is not hard to do. And then trying to get back to where I was again on my more mentally challenging work of all of the scientific papers I'd been reading can really take me much more time to reorient myself and get back into it. So when you batch similar tasks into one block of time, They might be scattered throughout your day right now, but if you find those things and you batch them into a single block of time, your brain is going to stay in that same mode. And so you're going to be wasting less energy trying to refocus. Batching is going to allow you to focus on one specific type of activity for a much more concentrated period of time because your brain is getting used in the same way, even if those are different tasks. And so what that means for you and your calendar is that you can get the same amount of work done in less time and feel less mentally drained at the end of the day. So now I'm going to teach you how to create your batch blocks. Now, it can be really overwhelming to overhaul your entire calendar, and that is not what I'm proposing that you do right now. What I'm going to present to you is a really low intensity approach that's not going to take too much time to implement, and that won't take a lot of energy for you to even get used to. So you can keep up your professional standards and your processes without really missing anything important or client meetings or appointments. I'm going to outline 5 really simple steps for you to create 1 to 2 batch blocks in your calendar for this week. It'll take you about 15 minutes total, but you're going to see about 10% of your calendar open up this week. And then what I want you to do is to do it again each week for at least 4 weeks. And at that point, the process should practically be done basically for any event that recurs daily, weekly, or monthly. You may still come across some stray time blocks that you can still group into something, but your calendar will be hugely improved after this point. By doing it this way, it's going to be very doable, incremental, and low intensity. So I'm going to assume that you already have a calendar set up where you can easily view all your tasks. Nothing is really missing from there. We can even do this in real time, and you can even pause to do the step before we move on to the next step, okay? So open up your calendars, and the first step is to look for any natural clusters. These are themes that you might see in the activities and time blocks that you already have scheduled in. These similarities could be that they have similar requirements or require the same type of execution, such as replying to emails and making phone calls. They could require the same tools, for example, paying bills, working on expense reports, and budgeting. They're all finance-related things, probably using spreadsheets. Or they can be logically grouped for a project. Okay, so you can pause here and look for those clusters. You don't really have to do anything, just kind of make note of them. So step 2 is to pick 1 to 2 groups that you identified. These are the clusters and themes that you've identified. And set a fixed duration to each of them. So the size of each batch is going to vary based on the complexity of the tasks, the time required for each of the tasks to be completed, right, that you're including in that group. Generally, 30 minutes to 2 hours for a batch block works really well. If you make it much shorter than 30 minutes, then you really run the risk of frequent context switching again. And if you make it too long, then you probably run the risk of losing focus. But really just figure out what works best for you and what you can realistically get done in that block. So don't put in a lot of tasks and then underestimate the duration. Just try to be honest and overestimate if you need to at first. Maybe you have 3 tasks in there that you think you could probably get done in an hour and a half, but just put in 2 hours as a nice little buffer. Okay, so pause and do that now. Okay, so far you have 2 blocks. You know what tasks go into each block and you know how long that block should be. So step 3 is to pick a dedicated time on your calendar. You need to have the day and the time. For example, Tuesdays from 9 to 11 a.m. As you build more batch blocks, you can start scheduling them back to back or even spaced out in your day. I personally like to build in buffers because that sort of breaks things up for me. I can mentally recharge before I transition to the next batch block, which will probably be a different context, right? Which is why we're doing these batchings to begin with. But the way you lay them out on your calendar is ultimately up to you. So just pause and figure out where you want these 2 particular batches to show up on your calendar. All right, we're more than halfway done. Step 4 is super simple. Figure out the frequency that you need these blocks to occur. If you have a digital calendar, then you can actually have your calendar automate it as a recurring event. But if you have a paper planner, you can just make sure that you enter it in on a weekly basis or whatever frequency you choose. whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, etc. Okay, so pause here and pick your frequency and then come back. Okay, step 5 is to just scan your week and look for single purpose events that aren't going to belong to any batches. And just verify if these are tasks that actually have to be on your calendar. And if they don't, then you can delete them. It's possible they don't belong on your calendar because they are not part of your life plan. They're not a priority, they're not something that is essential, or they're not something that furthers your life plan in any way, your vision or your goals in any way. It's possible that they're there just as an artifact to something else. Maybe it's not actually a task, it's just a reminder. Reminders are things that should be part of your workflow and not as an event on your calendar. But if it's actually a task that needs to be done, then it is likely that it's a micro task that can be part of another batch. And if it takes less than 15 minutes, is it something that you could just get done now? Whatever approach you take, my suggestion is that you minimize the number of orphan tasks that you have on your calendar. One example of orphan tasks that I do keep on my calendar are individual meetings and appointments, because I like to see who I'm speaking to, how I'm going to be meeting up with them, and exactly at what time. I also color code all of my client meetings and work meetings in a different color so that they really stand out and there is no way that I can overlook them. So those are the 5 steps to creating your batch blocks. So you should have 2 batch blocks right now for this week, and your calendar should already start to feel a lot more open. Each of your batch blocks should have a designated day, duration, theme name, right? Like admin block, deep work block, grant writing block, etc. And it should be set to recur at some frequency. Those 4 properties should occur for every batch block that you have. Within your batch block should be the specific tasks that you have in there. So those are no longer individual time blocks on your calendar. They have now been batched into a single block. Now repeat those 5 steps next week and so on and so forth until 4 weeks or so down the road, you feel like your calendar is so much cleaner. And once your calendar is all batched up like this, I would say to really honor the batching that you've worked hard to build. Just work on the tasks within that batch during the allocated time. Avoid switching to unrelated tasks or getting distracted by other things because you really want to work on completing as many tasks in that batch as possible so that you can maintain your steady workflow. And because working on other things outside of that batch kind of defeats the whole purpose of creating the batches in the first place. And don't forget to refine and adjust if needed. As you start using this, you're going to get a sense of whether you've set the right duration or if you need to adjust it. So just be open to experimenting with different batch sizes, durations, even sequences based on how things are working for you. And while your calendar should really be in great shape after this, if you ever feel down the road like your calendar is getting cluttered again and really crowded, you can just trigger these 5 steps again and do it very incrementally like we did here, and things will get back into shape again. When you feel overwhelmed and your calendar is actually adding to that overwhelm rather than making your day easier to do your tasks, I want you to try batch blocking. This is so that you can organize your calendar into these productive chunks of time. You can feel less harried and possibly then use some of that open time to do things that really matter to you, even if it's something tiny like reading with the kids or working on a passion project. So the steps that I outlined today for creating these batch blocks are 1, identify the clusters of tasks. 2, set a duration. 3, pick a day and time. 4, set the block to recur. And 5, delete any orphan tasks if possible. This is the system I would use if you already have a calendar set up and you have a bunch of time blocks and events just showing up left and right. This is how you're going to start to clean it up week by week by week. You're going to free up 10% of your calendar at a time. And after 4 weeks, your calendar is going to look so different. So I really hope you try this week. Just create those 2 batch blocks and delete any of the orphaned micro tasks that you have on there. I'm sure you're going to find at least 3 to delete. And doing this is going to remove about 10% of the clutter from your calendar. And I'd love it if you shared your win with me. Email me at hello@solveformom.com, and there's lots of different ways to reach me, so just check out the show notes and pick the one that works the best for you. I would love to hear about the progress that you've made in cleaning up your calendar view. And did you use the open time for some sort of purposeful reset, like a short walk or a coffee break or some family time? Now, if you liked this calendar tip, then I bet one of your friends will too. So please share this episode with them so that I can extend my reach to other moms in science. And because I share tips like this all the time, you definitely want to follow my show and make sure that I'm automatically added to your playlist every week when I release episodes. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next episode. I hope today's episode will help you create time and freedom to pursue something you love to do. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and tell other purpose-driven mamas about it. Who knows? You might even make a new friend by sharing a tip. It's all free. By the way, it would be amazing to hear what you think about the show when you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. After all, my passion is to make this a great experience for you. I'll see you next week for another episode of Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life with Anoki Kapasi.